honorable ministers on the dais and off the dais, Keshni ma'am, secretaries, water resources, drinking water and sanitation, my colleagues and friends who have gathered here today. It is an honor for me to present the context, to just do a little bit of context setting for the purpose for which we have gathered here today. A lot of this, and please bear with me, may be repetition from what the Honorable Minister for Jal Shakti has already said or from what the secretaries have said, but I think a little bit of it bears repetition and I will try to be as brief as I can. Next slide, please. Water is a state subject. The action lies in the states. जो भी पानी पे काम हो रहा है वो states में हो रहा है. Center has a nudge role, but it is a national concern. It is a national concern. These figures you all know. We have 2.4% of the geographical area of the world. We have 18% of the global population, 18% of the global livestock, but just 4% of the freshwater resources. Next slide, please. And we have spatial and temporal variations. I'm using these three figures just to emphasize, one, the spatial variations, the wide variety in the amount of rainfall that our country has. The second figure is the temporal variation. मतलब हमारी जो बारिश, जो पानी हमारे पास पानी गिरता है, वो 4 महीने, it's 4 months in a year. So huge temporal variation. And the third figure is also interesting. It looks at our population concentration. So where is the water needed and how can we supply water to those people who are in need? Next, please. This is a quick demand-supply overview. Again, these figures have been talked about, but I am just going to emphasize one point here. Given the assessed water demand for 2050 and the utilizable water from all sources, even if we use all our water with business as usual, there will be an overall water deficit by 2050. This is the assessment. And this is a national figure. This does not take into account the spatial variations. There will be regions which will suffer much more severely than others. So that needs to be kept into account. The last point is that climate change is already affecting the water cycle. We are seeing longer dry spells, we are seeing more extreme precipitation events, and I think something that we don't need to emphasize to everybody here is this climate change variability and failure to manage water properly will affect the most vulnerable most acutely. जो सबसे गरीब है, जो सबसे बेबस है, women, children will be most affected by poor management of water. And that is an equity principle that we have to keep in mind in terms of water management. Next slide, please. So just talking about storage, again, the minister has spoken in detail about storage, so I'm not going to spend too much of time. But one of the major ways of managing climate change variations is to increase storage. We need to figure out how to do it, we need to plan how to do it. Also possibly look at intra-basin and inter-basin transfers, because where you store you may not use. So we may need to think about that, and that will need us to create adequate strategies for consultation and sharing water. So again, we'll not go into the figures, just using this to emphasize the point that storage is inadequate and India has some of the lowest per capita storage in the world. Next, please. I've listed out some supply side issues and some demand side issues. So supply side issues, again, we've talked about high spatial variation. The second is storage capacity is limited. Maintenance issues, we've talked about siltation. Existing storage is also poorly maintained. Pollution, the existing water that we have is increasingly becoming not fit for purpose, and that needs huge attention. The losses in canal systems and on farms. Our water use efficiency for surface water is about, in irrigation, is about 38%. There is a huge effort required to increase that. Groundwater, it fueled the green revolution, but we are reaching unsustainable extraction levels. In various parts of the country, this has already become unsustainable. Linked with that is deteriorating quality and inequitable use. I think Winnie ma'am is here, and one of the things that we are grappling with is, drinking water should be the first charge for groundwater. लेकिन जगह जगह पे ये है कि अगर मेरे पास पैसे हैं और अगर मैं डीप बोर कर सकती हूँ, then I can sink a borewell that then threatens the sustainability of the drinking water supply in my village. Inequitable use and a very strong case for better regulation. Next, please. Demand side issues, we've broken it up into sectors. Again, not saying anything new, but maybe just listing it this way will help us think it out. Very poor water use efficiency in agriculture, cultivation of water-intensive crops. We have a large IPC-IPU gap. Infrastructure create किया हुआ है, last mile तक पहुंचता नहीं है पानी. So, poor use of existing investments and infrastructure. Unsustainable dependence on groundwater. Achha. Industry में we have poor wastewater management, and this looks at both issues. Treatment of wastewater is not compliant with standards. The second is we have not yet managed to, enforce large-scale reuse of treated water in our industries. Inefficient water use is another area. In domestic, and this with the Jal Jeevan mission, I think we are looking at strong issues of operation and maintenance. How are we going to make our systems financially sustainable? Do we need some unanimity regarding user charges? And I think one of the things that we would like to do in this conference is to stimulate some discussion on these issues. All the issues that I'm picking up will be picked up in subsequent sessions for more in-depth discussions. So some kind of national consensus can be created for a subject that is of national concern. High non-revenue water, particularly in urban supply systems, not so much in rural because networks are smaller. The second issue is sustainability. हम इतना बड़ा investment कर रहे हैं, उसको sustain करने का तरीका क्या है हमारे पास? Natural resources, जो पानी हम लोग use कर रहे हैं, particularly single village schemes में, उसको किस तरह से sustain करें? Human resources. Who will run the systems? Do we have the people there? Do they have the skills? Do they have the capacities? And can we pay for them? Financial sustainability. तो अगर हम sustainability पे अभी से ध्यान ना दें, तो JJM के हमारे जो investments हैं, हमें बार-बार वो investments करने पड़ेंगे. Next, please. So we put down a certain number of objectives of this visioning exercise. आजकल हम जो करने वाले हैं, उसके क्या हम नतीजा क्या चाहते हैं going forward. So I think one of the things was to devise common strategies to improve water management and strengthen water security. The second issue is, can we enhance water cooperation among states? हमारे पास ना water disputes पे हम लोग बहुत time लगाते हैं मैं सभी को कहती हूँ, even in government of India बहुत time जाता है water dispute resolution में, लेकिन हमारे पास water cooperation के क्या हो रहा है, उसको हम कैसे बढ़ावा दें, उसको किस तरह से क्रिएट करें. तो इस पे अगर चर्चा हो तो मेरे ख्याल से हमें आगे बढ़ने में आसानी होगी. Set national goals, agree national goals and agree local actions, क्योंकि local actions से ही water security होगा. The other very big thing is कि states में बहुत बढ़िया काम हो रहे हैं. कुछ हमें पता चलता है, कुछ हमें पता भी नहीं चलता है कि states ने अपने आप कर लिया, बाकी states को तो पता नहीं होता है. So हमारा आइडिया ये है कि ये एक फोरम होगा जिसमें हम एक दूसरे से बात कर सकेंगे, स्टेट्स ने क्या बढ़िया काम किया है वो सीख सकेंगे, और इवन एट नेटवर्किंग ओवर लंच ओवर चाय इन फोरम में हम एक दूसरे के साथ अपना जुड़ाव बढ़ाएंगे and we manage to network better, learn better from each other. Finally, can we develop a shared water vision for water security for 2047? Next please. Strategies, just some for consideration. एक तो holistic water governance. क्या तरीका है? Can we think about a single water regulator? जिन स्टेट्स ने काम किया है उन्होंने क्या देखा है, क्या सीखा है, ये हम आगे चल के बात करने की कोशिश करेंगे. Involve communities in their own security. मंत्री जी ने, प्रधानमंत्री साहब ने भी अटल भूजल के बारे में बात किया. अटल भूजल पायलट है, लेकिन उसको हम मेन स्ट्रीम कैसे करें, उस पर भी हमें चर्चा करना पड़ेगा. The second is improve water cooperation. What can be the institution, what can be the fora for that? जैसे नमामि गंगे is an institution where states are coming together to discuss the Ganga basin. Can we think about similar institutions that enhance water cooperation? Last is again a national push looking at local needs for building capacities and institutions for water management. People, we need people from the village up to the highest level who understand water management and who understand water management holistically. So building those capacities, how do we build those capacities? Next please. This is a short action plan for discussion, and this emanates from the discussion in the group of secretaries, and therefore we are placing this before this August House to think about and develop further. Obviously this is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it has some targets and some proposed actions for 2047. So activities to eliminate the UIP and the irrigation potential created gap, and the 20% gap between irrigation potential created and irrigation potential utilized. Can we look at largely eliminating this gap? Creation of storage. This again has both, we're looking at both surface storage as well as groundwater, local as well as some water transfers. Local means we also need to recognize the water and energy nexus. You know, how do you transport, what kind of energy use? So that needs to be also thought about. Technology driven and community managed crop diversification. Renovation including automation of important water infrastructure. We cannot build another Bhakra Nangal. Can we reduce sediment? Health management and safety measures for aging dams. And here, I think the dam safety legislation that has just come up, that covers major and medium dams. However, nothing stops the states from taking it forward to the minor water structures, because those are the ones that are most likely to fail. Interlinking of rivers. Next, please. Full saturation of effective water user associations in the entire irrigated command area. This, I think West Bengal will talk about this in the plenary, but this is something we need to have empowered water user associations, and maybe look at federating them into FPOs. Something like the SHG movement in water user associations. That's a target going forward. SCADA, enhancement of water use efficiency to 70%. Adaptation of climate resilient crops and lifestyle. Expansion of spring sheds, comprehensive glacier and water flow studies, data-driven integrated water management, effective and holistic regulation in states, and managing geotagging and maintenance of water bodies and wetlands. If we don't measure, we lose the wetlands and water bodies. Next, please. Circular water economy, the Prime Minister has spoken about it, I will not labor. Treatment of used water, reuse of used water, afforestation, catchment treatment for river catchment. Measure the health of catchments. Water quality monitoring, intensify water quality monitoring for all major river systems. Next. For drinking water, there is a more specific roadmap. This, I think, will be taken forward in the water security session. So I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but I think on this slide, and we will share these slides, is a timed roadmap looking at water security for all domestic consumption. Next, please. This is the target for Govardhan, the target for plastic waste management and for fecal sludge management. Again, this is for consideration of the states in terms of taking up a holistic plan for 2047. I will stop here, and I hope, next slide please, that from a water vision to an agreed action plan to a water secure future, factoring in climate change. Thank you very much.